The Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirect, it involves Kate.
The WNBA hierarchy was most afraid of this moment. Stephen A. Smith simply uttered the silent portion aloud. These days, Caitlin Clark does more than simply play basketball. She is fundamentally changing the women's sports industry, and it appears that she has had enough of being nice to a league that hasn't protected her. There are whispers and reports that the discussions for a new collective bargaining agreement would be bloody. And the explanation is straightforward. Every single card is in Clark's possession. The commissioner is in a panic. The veterans are furious. The loudest voice in sports media also suggests that the WNBA may have just realized they've gone too far. However, you are missing a far darker and more costly picture if you believe that this is only about a paycheck. Leverage, respect, and a possible exodus that might drive the league to its knees are at issue here. We need to look at the sequence of events leading up to this breaking point in order to fully see why Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is allegedly in a state of shock. Recently, the WNBA Players Union made the decision to leave their current labor agreement. A decision that completely destabilizes the league's future. Although this is officially a union decision, everyone is aware of the true motivator. Before Clark pulled on a jersey, the league's recent acquisition of a media rights agreement worth over $2 billion was absurd. She increased viewing by 3 times on her own. There is no denying the leverage in this situation. Clark generates the relevancy, but the league generates the money. The whole house of cards begins to wobble if she decides she doesn't like the terms of the new deal. The elephant in the room that Stephen A. Smith has been yelling about for months needs to be addressed before we go into the numbers. The greatest danger. This is no longer merely a rumor. The WNBA is facing a real, multimillion-dollar threat. Stars Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier launched a new 3-on-3 competition called Unrivaled. And its purpose was to retain players in the United States during the off-season. But there has been a lot of conjecture that this new league is planning an offer for Clark that would include stock ownership holdings in addition to a salary, similar to what Lionel Messi received in Miami. Clark now has the greatest weapon, the capacity to refuse. She doesn't have to play for peanuts during the WNBA off-season or grind in Europe. As Stephen A. Smith noted, this choice effectively puts the WNBA in a precarious situation. She has a multimillion-dollar parachute waiting for her somewhere else if they don't offer a CBA that accurately represents her worth. The negotiation table is entirely altered by the presence of Unrivaled. If WNBA players wanted to earn real money in the past, they had to travel to Turkey or Russia. It's a risky and draining grind. There is now a domestic alternative that offers greater compensation, fewer games, and less physical strain. This appeals to a guy like Clark, who plays a high-minute, high-intensity style. The WNBA is insane if they believe they can keep her satisfied by giving her a small salary. The knowledge that they no longer have a monopoly on professional women's basketball in the U.S. is probably what shocked the commissioner's office. Their biggest star is being courted by their rivals with open arms and large sums of money. Stephen A. Smith hasn't held back when it comes to criticizing the WNBA administration for what he describes as a disastrous squandering of a generational talent. He contends that during Clark's rookie season, the league and Commissioner Cathy Engelbert fostered a narrative of physical targeting and jealousy. Rather from showcasing her and promoting her as the NBA did with Michael Jordan or Larry Bird, they allowed her to be pursued. What many fans were speculating about was confirmed by SAS. A rift has been caused by the league's inability to safeguard its most valuable asset. Why would Clark do any favors for a hierarchy that left her hanging when it came time to bargain for money? This narrative of jealousy is not merely a product of the media. It has been broadcast live on national television. We need to examine the particular events that have probably contributed to Clark's resistance to the status quo. We all witnessed the body checks from athletes like Kennedy Carter, the hard fouls, and the passive-aggressive remarks from luminaries like Cheryl Swoops. The rookie has been the target of a clear, "you can't sit with us" attitude. During these CBA negotiations, the commissioner has a significant challenge due to this animosity. No amount of money makes it a decent bargain if the working conditions include being singled out by your coworkers while the referees ignore your complaints. Better travel, increased security, and a league culture that genuinely cherishes its stars rather than attempting to hide their light are all expected to be among the new demands. Let's examine the figures that have everyone in a frenzy. In comparison to the money she made by packing previously empty arenas and selling out products in a matter of minutes, Clark's rookie contract was only $76,000. That figure is practically illegal. It's offensive. To put things in perspective, the WNBA eventually started using charter aircraft this season, partly due to the security concerns raised by Clark's notoriety. Teams were flying commercial aircraft prior to her. She is the only reason the league is modernizing. According to the reports going around, Clark's team is well aware that she is being underpaid by a significant amount. It is not greed to reject the existing quo. It's business. Players have little authority in the WNBA's current business paradigm. But when Clark was drafted, that era came to an end. She is seeing pennies while producing millions. And that math is going to undergo a dramatic shift. When you consider the Caitlin Clark effect on the entire sports environment, the cash discrepancy is shocking. It's more than simply Indiana Fever ticket sales. It has to do with the rival teams. In order to handle the crowds, the Fever's games in Washington and Atlanta are moved to bigger NBA arenas. Just by having Clark in the building, they are breaking franchise attendance records. According to Stephen A. Smith, Clark is effectively funding the league as a whole. She is enriching the players who are severely fouling her and disparaging her in the media. This is not a sustainable dynamic. Why should she sign a CBA that divides earnings equally between individuals who produce different amounts of value? The negotiations will become heated at this point. When everyone contributes, the concept of an income split is effective. However, Clark is currently carrying the burden of 12 teams. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert is now in a difficult situation, and her recent public missteps haven't made things any easier. Recall the interview in which she was questioned about the hatred and prejudice aimed at athletes? Rather than adopting a strong moral position, she shifted to discussing corporate sponsorships and the benefits of rivalries for business. The league appeared callous and alienated the players' union as a result of the PR catastrophe. The players chose not to participate in the CBA precisely because of this lack of leadership. The guy at the top is not trusted by them. Why would Clark entrust the commissioner with her financial future if she doesn't trust her to manage the league's social climate? The realization that the players are well organized, irate, and under the leadership of a rookie with nothing to lose is shocking. This leads us to the rejection. What would happen if Caitlin Clark turned down the WNBA's offer? It appears to be a holdout. It appears that she is either taking a sabbatical or playing only for Unrivaled. The WNBA season is brief. It operates in the summer. The ratings would plummet if Clark chose to skip a season in order to make a point. The TV networks would be incensed because they recently pledged $2.2 billion. The WNBA was not funded by them. The Caitlin Clark Show was funded by them. The network executives will call the commissioner and demand explanations if the star fails to appear. Stephen A. Smith is referring to this kind of leverage. Clark has the potential to cause far more financial harm to the league than to her. She has Nike partnerships, Gatorade sponsorships, and big endorsements. The WNBA pay is pocket change to her. She is playing for legacy, not for rent money. Furthermore, we have to assess the position of the WNBA Players Association, WNBPA. The union president Eno Amiki and the leadership are in a delicate spot. They have to compete for all players from the 12th woman on the bench to the superstar. But the reality is that the superstar is the only reason they have leverage. There is a purported internal dispute between the old guard who wants everything to be equal and the new reality where one player is worth more than the rest combined. If the union tries to force Clark into a bad deal just to share the wealth, she might distance herself from the union entirely. We have seen this in the NBA where stars have their own gravity. Clark's team is likely pushing for a salary cap exception or a supermax deal that far exceeds what has ever been paid in the history of the league. Let's go deeper into the unrivaled equity rumor because this is the game share. In professional sports, the holy grail is ownership. Michael Jordan became a billionaire not because of his Bulls salary, but because of his equity in Jordan Brand and ultimately team ownership. If Unrivaled offers Clark a percentage of the league itself, she becomes a partner, not just an employee. The WNBA, as currently structured, cannot provide her equity in the franchises. There is a significant structural disadvantage. Stephen A. Smith is aware of this. He is aware that astute investors seek equity. The WNBA commissioner will lose Clark to the league that can offer her a piece of the pie if she is unable to do so. Panic is starting to set in because of this. They are using a rulebook from the 20th century to wage a commercial war in the 21st century. We have discussed the financial effects of the mean girl culture. Brand safety is a genuine thing. Major organizations like State Farm and Gatorade want its players to be in good, encouraging surroundings. If the WNBA continues to be regarded as a poisonous, petty atmosphere where veterans harass the emerging star, advertisers might pull back. They want to be identified with Clark, not with the controversy surrounding her. In reality, Clark is defending her brand partners by rejecting the present CBA and insisting on a better culture. She is reminding the league that they must improve the product if they are to continue receiving corporate sponsorship revenue. Rough birds and hate groups on the internet are detrimental to company. Clark is intelligent enough to understand that. In the 1980s, Stephen A. Smith also made a comparison to the NBA. The NBA was having trouble prior to Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. On tape delay, the finals were broadcast. It wasn't a worldwide powerhouse. After saving the league, those two celebrities received royal treatment. The WNBA is in its 1980s, according to SAS. Despite having the savior, they are handling her like a burden. The wedge is being driven by a failure to accept this truth. Without admitting that Clark is the one providing the success, the commissioner appears to want it. It is not possible to have it both ways. You can't pretend she's simply another newbie and cash the checks she writes. Maternity leave, post-career healthcare, and pension plans are also likely to be discussed during the negotiations. The seasoned athletes have battled for these things for years. Ironically, the veterans must be prepared to follow Clark's lead in order for her influence to eventually get funding for these initiatives. The owners will divide and conquer if the players don't band together in support of Clark and the animosity persists. Stephen A. Smith has issued a warning over this. According to him, the players will lose the greatest chance they have ever had if they allow jealousy to cloud their judgment. If the other players don't try to trip Clark while she's holding the battering ram, then everyone can get paid more. The expansion teams must also be taken into account. Teams are being added to the WNBA in Portland, Toronto, and San Francisco. To enter the league, these new ownership groups had to pay record fees.
Why?
Since they are placing a wager on the growth curve that Clark initiated. Those franchise valuations plummet if Clark declines the CBA or quits the league. Commissioner Engelberg is probably under pressure to complete this transaction at all costs from the new owners of the Golden State Valkyries and the other expansion towns. To watch the ratings fall, they didn't purchase a team. They purchased a team so they could sell out their arena and invite Caitlin Clark once a year. The players are not the only ones putting pressure on the commissioner. The billionaires who recently joined the league are the source of it. The Olympic snub factor is another. Do you recall Clark's exclusion from the USA squad for the Olympics in Paris? Although the public perceived it as a gatekeeping measure, the selecting committee claimed it was a basketball choice. NBC lost millions of viewers as a result of that choice, which also probably hindered the expansion of the women's sport internationally. It was a pivotal moment. It demonstrated to Clark that the establishment did not support her. Why would she get into a long-term CBA with the same organization that turned her down for a gold medal? That rejection could have been the final straw. It demonstrated how detached from reality the basketball experts in charge of the presentation were. They will now pay a price for their contempt during contract negotiations. What comes next? There is not much time left. Although the current CBA has a little longer duration, the opt-out indicates that time is of the essence. There will probably be a media battle. Stephen A. Smith has already set the tone for reports concerning avaricious athletes or tone-deaf owners. The old guard is up against Clark. He has made sure that the public's opinion of the celebrity stays the same by placing the narrative in this manner. There is no way out for the WNBA. The figures are too obvious and Clark is too well-liked to be portrayed as the antagonist. When the commissioner realizes she has run out of spin moves, she is shocked. She must make amends. This impasse has ramifications that go beyond basketball. It's a case study of influencer-era labor relations. The archetype of the contemporary athlete maker is Clark. She can communicate directly with her admirers. The league's marketing division is not necessary for her. She is actually needed by the league's marketing division. For conventional sports, this transfer of power is alarming. Executives accustomed to narrative control. The way female players are paid in all sports will alter if Clark prevails in this case and receives a historic raise, equity, or substantial concessions. It's a moment that sets precedent. The coaching and officiating are additional layers to this. The player's physical safety is a part of the refusal narrative. The WNBA's refereeing has come under fire for being inconsistent and permitting excessive physicality in games, frequently at the expense of talented players like Clark. Better referee training or rule modifications that safeguard offensive skill, akin to the NBA's ban on hand-checking to enable players like Kobe and Iverson to thrive, could be required by a future CBA. Clark has every right to decline to participate in the game if the league doesn't clean it up. In a league where defenders can body slam you for $76K a year, why take the chance of tearing your ACL? The details are important, so let's get back to the TV agreement. $2.2 billion in 11 years. That may seem like a lot, but when you divide it up by team and player, it's still not NBA money. But compared to the prior agreement, which was about $60 million annually, it is a huge increase. The excitement surrounding the 2024 draft class is nearly solely responsible for the increase. The strike is unavoidable if the players believe that the owners are attempting to hoard this new wealth. The face of this wealthy generation is Clark. When she says, "We aren't getting our fair share," the public will pay attention. In essence, Stephen A. Smith is setting up the audience for a confrontation in which the players seek a far bigger piece of the pie. There's also an overwhelming hush from Clark's camp. She hasn't done many interviews on the subject. She now lets insiders like Sayas talk after letting her game speak. This is a traditional negotiation strategy. She keeps the league guessing by being silent. Her actual bottom line is unknown to them. Is it cash? Is it secure? Is that equity? Does leadership need to be completely redesigned? The commissioner is going nuts about this ambiguity. If they are unaware of her demands, they are unable to devise a strategy to counter her. However, the unwillingness to use the existing terminology says a lot. Lastly, we must examine the fans. The Caitlin Clark stans are a natural power. They spend money, are vociferous, and are well organized. Millions of new customers who have just walked in the door will be offended if the WNBA alienates Clark. These supporters have little interest in the Detroit Shocks or the Houston Comets past. The number 22 is important to them. The commissioner is aware that the league will return to obscurity if she loses these supporters. The notion that the WNBA's expansion is precarious is shocking. It's not yet systemic. It is motivated by stars. And the darkness reappears if poor management causes the star to flicker out. The WNBA no longer has complete control over its players. We are seeing a hostile takeover of the league's commercial model, as Stephen A. Smith's confirmation of the friction behind the scenes demonstrates. With her notoriety, power, and backup plans, Caitlin Clark can turn down any offer that doesn't treat her like the legend she is. The commissioner may be as astonished as she likes, but the truth is straightforward. The brick's price recently increased, and someone else will undoubtedly pay it if the WNBA isn't. The rejection is genuine. The fear is warranted. Additionally, the player is holding the pen for the first time in recorded history. The WNBA's decision to sign the check or watch their future disappear is the only unanswered question.